Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining today's webinar. We'll be presenting with Steve Weiss, who is the founder and CEO of Mute6 in collaboration with Skubana. Just waiting for his microphone to start jamming, and we'll get started. In the meantime, I am speaking to you live from the jungle of New York City in Soho, and I want to understand where people are dialing in from and what some expectations for today's webinar are. Today we'll be really jamming on, Mute6 is really foundationally built around Facebook advertising. That's how Steve started his career. And I wanted to bring him on because he has a wealth of knowledge around capturing customers around the F word, and that's Facebook. Hello, Sid. Hello, AJ. So why don't you put some questions around Facebook advertising, maybe even how Facebook and Amazon go together so that we can start actually just winging it. Steve is notorious for winging it around webinars. So like we'll have slides as a framework, but we will be freestyling it and spitballing it throughout the presentation today. So I want to see that chat box going. If you guys can actually flow some questions in there as Steve gets his microphone worked out, that would be great.
What do you say?
Oh, looks like we got, is that Steve?
Yep.
What's up, man?
Going on. Finally, it was one box that I was missing to turn the microphone on. I was like losing my mind. I was like, where's the microphone?
Are you doing no video today or are you doing videoless?
Wait, no, where's video? Yeah, I'll go video. Yeah, let's do it.
There you go. Fellow New Yorker in a California body.
Jersey, man. I gotta rep Jersey. Jersey gets no love. It's always either New York or California. Chad, you're a Jersey guy too, right?
I'm a Jersey guy. And while I was born in Queens, raised in Jersey, my father's half Canadian, so I got that like dual citizenship thing going on for me. So like,
there you go.
That always works out to my advantage.
Cool. I knew you were half Canadian. I was going to ask you, man. You definitely looked half Canadian. I never realized that. Cool. Let's rock and roll, man. This is exciting.
I was just introing you. I introduced Mute6. One of the reasons why I want to do this was really that you've really built your career and Mute6's foundation around Facebook advertising. That's where you got your big start. And you're doing it for some very large brands. And so I wanted to we're going to dig deep. I had people throw in the chat box to see what they want to know about today. Because right now we're just have a jam session. We have some PowerPoints that we can riff on. But we're going to be just spitballing and freestyling it through today's presentation. We want this to be interactive.
Yeah, totally. I think one of the biggest problems that we see is, with a lot of brands we work with is how do you measure your omni-channel strategy? How do you know that the impact that the Facebook ad has across your whole funnel? So in essence, you're scaling on Facebook, you're spending money. Maybe you're not spending at an efficiency that you're comfortable with, but how is Facebook and Instagram as both discovery channels impacting your Amazon store, impacting your Google, impacting brand search? These are a lot of the questions that I think a lot of people, I'm sure, listening to this webinar are really trying to figure out because, there is no data sharing between any of these massive platforms from Amazon to Facebook. No one talks to each other. So it's really hard to understand the impact that this ad has across your whole omni-channel funnel.
So two questions come to mind for that. Number one is, let's just say somebody sees your ad on Amazon for an Amazon product or your Shopify store or any other shopping cart. How do they do attribution? How long is that person attributed to Facebook versus some other way that they discover you or see you?
So literally how it works is if it's a Facebook ad, you have an attribution window on Facebook of 1-day view, 28-day click. That's the default attribution window. Literally, I don't exactly know how it works in Amazon of how Amazon attributes, a view through or a click conversion. I'm not 100% positive. But I know specifically on traffic sources like Google search and Facebook, you can adjust the attribution window based upon how you want to optimize your campaigns.
Got it. Yeah, Amazon doesn't have, outside of building in what we call an Amazon storefront, which has traffic attribution to it. And I actually have a slide on that. I can go to that now since we're just winging it. If you look here, where is it? Right here. Nope, that's storefront. The storefront URL. Storefront URL link, and Amazon actually will drive traffic, and you actually can see after you create that storefront URL where that traffic is coming from. Anyway, just something to think about as we're talking about different topics today.
How does so obviously you could. Interesting. So I'm not 100% familiar. I've done some Amazon search advertising, but I'm definitely not an expert on your level of expertise. But how does Amazon exactly track conversion? So literally, can you send traffic from, say, Google or Facebook to your Amazon store and then positively attribute that back? Can you place a conversion pixel anywhere in Amazon? Do they allow that?
Only track the traffic attribution from a storefront URL level, and Amazon will just say, yeah, this many people come from Facebook. Yeah, this many people come from Twitter. When it comes to actually driving to a listing, Amazon doesn't even tell you what your listing conversion rate is. You have to go into business reports on the back end of Seller Central, business reports, and you sort by parent item on an ASIN level. And you then have to take your units ordered plus your B2B units ordered divided by the amount of people that are coming to your site, which will give you your conversion rate data.
Interesting. Okay. That makes thinking about that. So literally they don't have any types, I guess it's still a little rudimentary in the way they track and attribute conversions back all the way back to, you can't really drive traffic yet outside of Amazon to an Amazon listing. I guess
people do it all the time. They do it because they need to increase their velocity on a SKU and actually get to a steep velocity. So that actually goes into the Amazon flywheel. And I hate using that word, but it goes into the Amazon ranking system. And the more people that see it, the more people that come to your site, the more people that buy, it becomes this like never ending cycle. And then eventually you get Amazon Choice, and it's really, really hard to get an incumbent out of the Amazon Choice badge once you have it. So they use outside traffic like Google AdWords or Facebook and just drive traffic. But the problem is you never know what your real ROI is at this moment in time, right? At the day that we're speaking today, Amazon does not have attribution on that level yet.
So correct if I'm wrong, but the main strategy that a lot of Amazon store owners are using is just velocity. They want to use outside traffic to increase, velocity to really kind of, I guess, game the algorithm in a sense. Like literally, if we're, let's say, Chad, one of your stores, we're using Facebook ads to really draw, we're creating a video and then we're going to drive those users back to your Amazon store. Obviously, we could see from when we launched that campaign to like now, we could see a lift in the Amazon store, but the main KPI or the main thing that you're trying to optimize for is what we call this velocity inside of Amazon, correct?
So velocity essentially is more people buying your product. So Amazon, think about it. Amazon makes money on ad spend, great. They make some money when they do your pick and pack on FBA, great. They make the most money when they take a percentage of your sale on your revenue and they take those commission dollars. So that's the number one thing that you need to get is conversions. You need to get your conversions to be higher. Now, the more people that buy a product at a given time, if a person buys 2 or 3, it increases the revenue. So 10% of $10 is $1. 10% of $100 is $10. Amazon's making more when people buy more. So that's something that Amazon really, really values. And that's why a lot of these discounting techniques don't work anymore, because it's actually devaluing the amount of money that Amazon is making, or giveaways. That stuff doesn't work anymore.
Got it. Interesting. And I guess that's why they want to drive high value users to the Amazon listing, because then Amazon will list them more based on a conversion rate. So they're obviously very similar to Facebook, whereas Facebook is very interested in providing the best user experience to consumers, because obviously if they flood people with the wrong ads, or they even just, flood people with ads, obviously people are going to be coming back to Facebook and Instagram less and less. So similarly, Amazon wants to really populate listings on search pages that have the highest conversion rate, because that's how they make the most money.
Exactly. Now, when we're talking about driving outside traffic to an Amazon listing, Amazon loves outside traffic. They love people that backlink a URL. If a blog gives a shout out to an Amazon listing regarding a product, Amazon loves that. Amazon has a Twitter link on each Amazon page, a Twitter social link. You can leverage that link, and that'll help influence it. So there's a lot of different ways that you can actually influence with outside traffic to drive traffic to a listing and see what works, identifies what's working, and then double down on those strategies.
Cool, interesting. So that brings up a really good point. So sure, there's a lot of people that are starting Amazon stores and are really trying to figure out how to grow their Amazon store, because obviously that'll have a positive impact on their business as a whole. When you do a lift test, or what's referred to in the Facebook ecosystem of really figuring out, what is the lift on a specific, on an ad set or an ad, you want to really understand how this ad has an impact across your whole funnel. Like, how do you do a lift test on Amazon? Like, how could you literally do you do one experiment at a time? So for instance, if you're running Google search traffic, you don't have a Google Pixel installed on your Amazon listing. How do you know which is the driver, and you have multiple traffic sources going back into Amazon, which is obviously going to pick up the velocity? How do you do a test and understand which specific traffic source is the driver of success?
So, well, you're a Facebook marketer. So you've got the top of the funnel, the tofu, and then you've got the mofu, the middle of the funnel, and then you've got the bofu, the bottom of the funnel. So if you're a Facebook marketer and you separate into different campaigns on Facebook with different links, with different tofu, top of the funnel strategies, you still don't know how the landing page converts, and you don't know how each one of those campaigns, which one is working the best, outside of just click-through rate, right? You know your click-through rate on Facebook. You sort of can get a sense of what your engagement is. But Amazon really just comes down to, it's like an abacus. You have to go into the back end of Seller Central, go to those business reports, and just see what your impressions were before, what your impressions are now, and whether or not what the conversion rate is on those impressions. But you can't get as granular as knowing what campaign is actually working for you on a bottom of the funnel, what's converting.
Interesting. So, you think that if they wanted to bring, obviously some of the best direct response marketers are on Facebook and on search.
Yeah.
I'm always curious as to why, Amazon is not trying to bring those great marketers to the Amazon platform, because, if they had some of the tools that Facebook has, some of the tools that Google has, obviously a lot of big spenders, people like me who have made a long living, literally as a direct response marketer, we'd all come on the platform. But that's, in my opinion, the main reason why a lot of big time marketers haven't really came on the platform, because they don't have any of this data that they could positively attribute.
Mm-hmm. So right now, it looks like David had a good suggestion. It says source tagging within store. So Amazon has a source tag that can help you track performance of specific traffic sources with this source tag parameter, which is question mark. It's a whole parameter when you're promoting or posting your store's URL to track where specific traffic comes from. But I think you can only do that on a store level, which is what I said earlier. I don't think you can actually do it on a listing level. David, correct me if I'm wrong. I know you can do it on an Amazon web store level, storefront level, but I don't think you can do it on a listing level. Can you confirm? Because you may have some good knowledge on this topic. In the meantime, while David is chatting us back, what were you asking, Steve? I'm sorry.
Let's start running through the slides. I think that's a good next step.
All right, cool. We did have some questions come in. Let's see. Sarah said she wants to know more about Facebook, how they use advertising. Is it for marketplaces or a direct-to-consumer site? I can respond to that. You can respond to that.
Yeah. So Facebook is, the old adage that everyone talks about is Amazon is where you go to sell product, and Facebook is where you go to build brands. So when you run on Facebook, your whole goal is to forge a direct relationship with your consumer, whether it's the content that they're engaging with, or whether it's the whole conversion flow that they're going through to purchase your product. You market specifically on Facebook to drive people to a Shopify store, to a Magento store, whatever storefront you have, and that works best just because on Amazon Amazon's marketplace and a lot of these marketplaces you can't forge the direct relationship. That's why some people are some companies are very bullish on having that direct relationship with the consumer. That's why they don't do a lot of marketplaces.
So you're saying Facebook allows you to have a direct one-to-one relationship with your client. That's why you work with a lot of these cool brands that are not necessarily marketplace driven.
Yeah, and they're starting to become more and more marketplace driven. I think, the demand to really have a much deeper omni-channel strategy is growing, and I think that's kind of the reason why, a lot of our team members are very fascinated with, and we're investing a lot into the learning side of marketplaces. We don't look at just Amazon; we look at all marketplaces, whether it's Walmart or any of these other marketplaces where you can sell products. So I think that's the future. I think, to really be able to scale on each platform, you really need to be selling on every single marketplace as well, as long as they're not infringing on your brand. That's the biggest thing. A lot of pain points I talk to from people we work with is that, there's a lot of people who rip off products that they try and sell on Amazon. It's still really hard to police that properly.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is, like, one of your clients, right, which is public, is MeUndies, right?
Yeah.
So let's just use them as an example. I just want to use them as a talking point. So if you go to Amazon.com right now, anybody that's listening, you go to Amazon.com, you go to the Amazon auto suggest feature. So if you go to Amazon.com, you go to the search magnifying glass and literally start typing in MeUndies, MEUNDIES. So MeUndies, people are actually going to the marketplace shopping for this product. This is fascinating to me, right? The old way of doing it, where a lot of these quote unquote cool brands that are not on a marketplace, they're getting their lunch eaten because people are searching for it. MeUndies for men, MeUndies for women, MeUndies boxer briefs. And literally they go to Amazon, they type in MeUndies, and they have all these competitors that are essentially either advertising on their name or are ranking on their name for their specific SKUs.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that I do when I talk to these brands, like a MeUndies or any of these cool brands that are direct to consumer, that are disrupting a space or have a very innovative product, I never understood why they wouldn't actually have their product on Amazon. I don't get it, because they're losing a massive amount of market share.
Yeah, it's true. And I think there's a lot of, I agree. I think that there is a lot of branded search, especially people coming from Facebook, that are that are going on Amazon saying, okay, I saw this really cool Facebook ad. Can I buy it on Prime? Like, people just want to buy it on Prime. Shopify can't copy the Prime experience. So if you see something cool on Facebook, a lot of people will just go in Amazon search and try and buy it through Prime. And you're 100% right. I mean, I think, they're going to make a decision on another brand here. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of brands risk, is that they're not monetizing every single piece of what we call intent-driven real estate. I use that word a lot, like intent-driven real estate, because if you go on Google and you type MeUndies, obviously MeUndies is going to come up as a branded search term, branded ad. But if you go on Amazon, they're not monetizing, all this intent-driven real estate. So I think that you're going to see over the next couple of years that's going to change at the very least. Everyone should have a store on Amazon, in my opinion, at least just to take care of all these branded search traffic. Now, you don't have to put your best inventory on this store. I know we talked a little bit about which specific inventory, that you want to put up on Amazon, because maybe use Amazon as almost like bait to bring people back to your e-commerce experience.
Yeah, the thing is, like, if you're checking out on a commodity like toilet paper, you have to ask yourself, what else are people buying? What other commodities are people buying? And like underwear, while they're trying to make it sexy, right? I get it. Maybe it's like not like right? It's just normal everyday underwear. Like, that's something that you would buy in your cart directly with a garlic press, or with some of these like core fundamental things that you would have in your house. So, and then when I go to look at the search volume on MeUndies, right, you've got 2,700 broad searches happening on a monthly basis, 2,400 of MeUndies for men. Like, there's a lot of opportunity here that is just being uncaptured. And I think it's just because they're thinking that it's going to cannibalize their brand, but they're already being cannibalized, because they're essentially cannibalizing themselves by not owning more real estate space on the internet.
Yeah, 100%. I think that they really need to figure out how to monetize all that intent-driven real estate, because you're going to start seeing a lot of these other marketplaces pop up, and people are going to go on these marketplaces that they show affinity to, and they're going to make purchases off those marketplaces. And even I think that there's an offline to online component to some of these marketplaces. As Amazon as everyone's starting to see, Amazon now has a retail component. So if someone buys something on Amazon, if they buy something on Target or Walmart, maybe they just want to pick it up in the store. They want to buy online and pick up in store. So you're going to see that might be a better purchasing experience than waiting 7 days or 5 days to get something in the mail. So I think, that's kind of what we're seeing, ahead of the game, is that, Shopify is not always the best purchasing experience because they have to figure out how to compete with these marketplaces. And that's why we always recommend, a lot of the partners we work with to really start building out Amazon or other marketplaces.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. I mean, look, I've been talking to a lot of these D2C brands, and some get it and some just like don't care. And I always find it fascinating how they just don't care. Right. I can use another example, like Away Travel. They make this smart luggage, and the Away luggage, there's a massive amount of people that are searching Away luggage. And you type that in, you've got people advertising on their name. You've got Amazon Basics advertising on their name with smart, right? So they're going to be made irrelevant over time because they actually are losing on the opportunity to get, even to increase presence and brand equity, but also just like your LTV. People are gonna be like, okay, well, I already bought a Basics one, it's great. Why don't I just go back and do that same thing, or a Samsonite or whatever else is coming up on Amazon?
Yeah, no, it's so true, man. I just think there's just a giant, I've been pushing my team to really figure out like the correlation between Facebook and Amazon, because there is a definite correlation between the two traffic sources. I think, the team that could really figure out the measurement protocol of measuring each dollar spent on each platform and correlating it to a full omni-channel, that's what's going to win out long term. And obviously with offline coming, how do you really understand the impact of every ad dollar, that's being invested? And I think that's kind of what we're after. Big picture is that we want to build a solution to really measure the impact of every single ad dollar across your whole funnel.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that we did, at least so like obviously people here know that we created a software called Skubana, which is really built around the highest volume Amazon sellers and top Shopify sellers. We're a multi-channel platform to run and automate your business. But how I created Skubana with my co-founder DJ was actually, I was a seller suffering through the whole, if I'm selling across 20 channels, how do I make it work? How do I make it happen? And Amazon advertising is very, very new right now. It's still early on. It's the wild, wild west. People are spending and don't know what their spend is versus what they're making, and then what they're keeping, right? So there's this very, very large disconnect in terms of bidding up search terms right now, because people don't have the mental power to understand correlation. So one of the things that we were doing early on, we did a correlation analysis between what we're spending on Amazon versus what we're actually receiving for revenue. And that correlation had a low R coefficient, meaning there was a lot of statistical insignificance between what we were spending to what we were making, meaning we were just throwing money up against the wall to see what actually would work, or what was working. Like, we weren't actually going at it in a very surgical way. And we've worked very hard to change the correlation R coefficient between what we're spending to what we're making, and actually increasing that to like a 0.7, right? You'll never be a 1-to-1. You'll never get, for every dollar you spend, this is what you're making, and a direct correlation, but you can get certainly very, very close.
Interesting. So even on very brand focused keyword terms, and I guess you can't really scale because there's always a finite amount of people searching for specific topics. One thing that, go on.
I was going to say, for those topics, think about it. You have, if you're in the luggage space, you have hundreds of competitors. While Amazon's giving you a lot of traffic, that traffic is spread out amongst a lot of different people, or sellers or merchants.
Yes, that's interesting. One of our tricks of what we do, just to really understand trends of what people are buying at a specific day, we're always on a kind of a quarterly basis. We're digging deep into Google Trends. We're taking keywords from our keywords from our search campaigns and really looking in Google Trends and really trying to figure out what's really hot right now. What are people searching for? And that kind of has a big impact on how we market on Facebook and how we market on other traffic platforms. I think Google Trends is huge. So
how do you leverage? I'm just curious. So like, can you walk us through an example of how you leverage Google Trends for that?
Yeah, just very simply, let's say we're marketing a jeans company. We do jeans obviously aren't the hottest thing to market in the summer. I mean, not a lot of people wear jeans. It's hot outside. So what Google Trends does, it kind of calculates the velocity of people searching for jean-related keyword topics across all of Google's properties. So you can literally just type in the Google Trends the word jeans, and you can see that, okay, well, on August 7th, it got a score of 53, or, then as you can see, this is historical data. So you can see past 5 years, and Google has all this data just sitting here that you can really kind of map out and figure out, which specific keywords or products or SKUs. You can even narrow down a SKU level to see what could be the hottest thing for this time of year. Because the reality is with e-commerce, obviously it's a lot of products are very seasonal, and people's buying patterns change on a quarterly basis. So that's why you see on Facebook that there's hikes in conversions and there's lows in conversions. There's times a year where there's just anything you put up there will get crazy engagement, and literally, you look like a champion. There's other times a year where you're taking your best creative and multiplying that by 20 ad sets and trying to figure out what's going to scale. And I think, probably very similarly with Amazon, I would say that it's probably very similar in that, sometimes a year seasonality has a lot of impact on people's purchasing habits, especially what people are searching for.
Yeah. I'll just tell you that I posted something to LinkedIn, I want to say a couple months ago, where we did something very interesting around like the Chinese sellers that are now starting to compete on Amazon, which, by the way, are now starting to build direct-to-consumer companies. And one of the examples I posted on LinkedIn through Google Trends was I put in the word Anchor, which is the #1 biggest brand on Amazon, right? They're the biggest seller on Amazon right now, Anchor, Anker. And I did a plot on Google Trends of 5 years with Belkin, Belkin. They both sell the same stuff. And what you'll see is Anchor is rising and Belkin is falling, and they're both intersecting at this moment where one is intersecting the other, and Anchor is taking over, right, as the new incumbent of these wire or wireless products that Anchor is selling today.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm a huge believer in Google Trends. I think Google Trends has so much. Google just has so much data that's available to marketers that I feel like a lot of marketers just aren't. Maybe they're not like totally aware of, but there's so much like information out there. You can even inside of Google AdWords, just looking at average daily searches for specific keyword terms, Google Trends for monthly velocity over the last 5 years. There's so much information. So yeah, I'm totally in agreement there. Moving on to another topic, I found really interesting. This whole webinar is kind of like taking Facebook and Amazon and kind of correlating to each other and really learning from both platforms, learning how they intersect and how they could work together in omni-channel format. We've had experience, and I talk to a lot of Facebook marketers because I'm a paid social guy and I'm also a search guy. So one of the things that I've learned over the years is that if you do go on Amazon, and this is why I tell everyone before they go on Amazon, is just make sure you have a good product, because we've had tons of experiences where companies we worked with would go on Amazon with their product and say, wow, it's already working. We're already crushing it on Facebook. Let's just go on Amazon. Yeah. And then what happens is they go on Amazon, they start selling a lot of product on Amazon. Everything's great. Then what happens? They get bad reviews, on Amazon. Whoever's buying on Amazon, their expectations aren't managed properly or whatever. And then that messes up our Facebook ads, because what happens is people use Amazon not just to buy products, but just to see reviews on products. I feel like the user behavior that is really prevalent is not that people buy products on Amazon, but they actually will just look at reviews. They'll look on the Facebook news feed and they'll just go on Amazon search it, and just read the reviews of that product from Amazon users, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I think with Amazon is just a different game. And you have to learn how to play that game, right? Off Amazon is a completely different skill set than on Amazon. Yes, it's about traffic, it's about conversions. Those principles still remain intact. It's about your creative assets as well and your funnel. But they're just two different games. You need to be able to be, I think, good at both of them.
And so, Chad, question for you. Getting into the nitty gritty. Besides just the obvious of provide a very good user experience on Amazon, like how as an Amazon seller do you really, this might sound like a very rudimentary question, but I'm asking you this because I'm not an Amazon expert. I'm kind of new. I have an Amazon store that I'm learning off of personally, just because I want to be great. Obviously I'm curious. So I want to be great at marketplaces personally. And how do I get a 5-star rating on Amazon? Like, how do I obviously as a new Amazon seller, a person who's just curious on the platform, what are some of the tactics and strategies that you really have been pushing over the years to get those ratings up and then really push to get the best reviews?
So are you saying seller reviews or
seller reviews and or product reviews? I think Amazon's a review driven. It's a review driven platform, like most platforms. I think even on Facebook's also a very review driven platform. But I look at Amazon as people, if you have a 2.5-star review and you show up on a listings page, with this product, people just aren't going to buy that product. It's just the reality. The conversion rate is going down. So much of all the time and effort you put into Amazon is based on how good people review your product. You could be the best marketer in the world, but if you don't get bad reviews, you're done.
So first thing you need to do is figure out what is driving those negative reviews and solve for those negatives. And that's even when I'm coming out with a new product. I'm always thinking about what are the problems with what's there today. Does the listing suck, or does the product actually suck? And what sucks about the product, and how do we solve around that and innovate around that? So first thing you need to ask yourself, whatever you're selling, first of all, if it's your own product, you have a lot more wiggle room than if you're reselling a product. But let's just say you're selling your own product. You need to think about, why are people leaving negative reviews? What is the problem? Now, if it's truly that your product sucks, or maybe there's remorse, or maybe there's a misunderstanding about that product, you can start baking that into your listing. Also, you can actually look at your email, your emails to those clients, and you can have direct conversations with those Amazon clients about the product, so you can actually pinpoint what it is that they don't like. And it's one thing to be like customer service oriented, which is very reactive. Another thing is customer experience, which is very proactive. So what is the experience that the person is having with your product that you can actually work on changing that experience before they even leave a review?
That's really cool. So just to recap what you just said. So number one, obviously trying to cure the pain or the solution of the product inside the listing. So talk about one of the pain points or the solutions that customers are already talking about inside the listing. Number two, be very proactive. Start initially, once you start seeing velocity with the store, just start reaching out to people and really, having a customer service team that's less. Whereas I think when you sell through e-commerce, people are a little bit more reactive. Having someone reach out proactively to get, to ask people how everything's going will obviously make people a lot more likely to write a better review on their whole experience. So it's kind of proactive, as well as being able to really understand the pain points and put those in the listing, correct?
Yeah. I would target, turn the negative. You're a Biggie fan, so turning the negative and turning it into a positive, right, is what you want to be doing with your listings. And you take those negatives of your competitors. And also, by the way, any negatives that you have, you should be addressing those up front. That prevents any returns and prevents a negative experience as well. Like if your product, someone's always returning a product for a specific reason, just be frank about it and address it up front. Be like, by the way, this doesn't come with batteries. That solves your battery issue if people are complaining that your product doesn't come with batteries.
That's awesome. That makes too much sense. Cool. So
yeah. I want to just pinpoint, there's 2 comments that came in. One of them is directed at you, and one's really applies to what I was just talking about, which is Eric writes in, owner of Beard Brand, said he took his products off Amazon and saw 86% increase in traffic on his website. No loss in net new customers. Thoughts, ? With a link to his site. So my first question would be like, hey, I need more information. So there's one thing about, okay, you have more traffic coming to your site, because maybe they've already created all this brand loyalty to Beard Brand. And by the way, Amazon was probably instrumental in that, where people have Beard Brand oil sitting in their bathroom. And now they are like, oh, I want the same one. I really like the way that it feels on my beard. And so they can't find it on Amazon, and it's going back to the site because they've given them no choice, right? So maybe Beard Brand utilized Amazon as leverage to grow his own brand. Just saying, right? I know he has a lot of YouTube videos. I know Eric has a big following on YouTube, and he used YouTube to grow his brand. The next thing is it says no loss in net new customers. So I don't know if it was that Amazon was helping drive net new customers, or what the lifetime value of those clients are, or how many were discovered on Amazon, to really be really thoughtful on it. And I would love to talk to Eric about his decision and to understand that in more detail. But when I go to Amazon and type in beard brand, obviously he's not showing, and others are capitalizing on that and never even knew about his brand. So it's like actually could be negatively impacting, because he's now lost brand awareness and social proof.
Yeah, he's not taking advantage of all the intent that's being driven from his other channels. Obviously, if he has a YouTube channel, or he's running, maybe he's scaling up Facebook as a traffic source. So if he's scaling up Facebook, maybe he's losing out because a lot more people are Amazon searching from the Facebook ads. So I say that's great that you haven't lost any new customers and you're scaling, but I feel like kind of you're leaving food on the table if you're not just showing up. It's always the old adage about like Google branded search. Like, we used to get the question all the time, like, should I be bidding on my keyword term? And I think that question has come up, over the years of running, Mute 6, and even when I was before Mute 6, when I was running, multiple types of affiliate ads and on Google, is like, what's the value of building a brand search? And I always say that you can increase the conversion rate just from being there. You could have different product listings pop up on Google search. You could have search strings, pop up. So you could do a lot more. But I feel like, to make a long story short, you need to take advantage of everywhere that there's intent. You need to be there. Just showing up is 9/10 of the game.
So just going back to Facebook, because a lot of people here want to know more about Facebook. Like, they haven't cracked the Facebook code, so to speak. What are some nuggets you can drop for people that are listening? Because it's already 2:40. They take time out of their day, which we're super grateful for. What are some things that we can drop on the audience where they're just like, okay, I can go implement that in my business today?
Yeah, so number one, the most obvious thing is creative. I think that's the most talked about thing. Facebook wants to create a very native ad experience. So before you start running a lot of Facebook ads, now you can look at the info and ads of your competitors. So really, understanding what types of ads are going to drive a meaningful amount of engagement. So if you have an ad that goes viral inside of an ad set, you're much more likely to get cheaper traffic and cheaper clicks with a cheaper auction bid than you are if you set up 5 ads and none of them generate any form of virality. So I always tell brands right now to really think of themselves as content creators on Facebook. You're a content creator. You're not running that newsfeed post is not really an ad. You're building content to engage a consumer, to help them make a purchasing decision. So number one, creative. You have to use video. Make sure you're using the right type of video. If it's mobile, make sure you're using a mobile video. Make sure square video. So make sure they're using the right type of video. Make sure it renders properly. I can definitely dive more into that. But number one, video. Number two, tons and tons of success with Instagram Stories. Finally, I think that Instagram Stories is a new medium. Still not a lot of advertisers are really leveraging. So building specific types of content for Instagram Stories. And Instagram Stories has a meaningful impact across the whole funnel. So someone might see an Instagram story and then make a purchase from your Facebook ad. Because remember, Facebook is, cross device, cross everything. So if they see an Instagram story, convert from another ad that pops up on the news feed. So literally, Instagram Stories works really well and it originally worked well for remarketing, but now it's starting to work well for prospecting. So those two things, creative, Instagram Stories. I know it's a very open-ended question, but when you do creative, digging a little deeper into that, try and find 1 or 2 solutions to a problem that you're solving. The solutions are the key differentiators, and really try and be very narrowly focused on the solution. And I guess something we're learning over the years is don't overcomplicate it. Obviously, from an audience perspective, the Facebook algorithm is getting a lot smarter, I'd say. And so you don't have to overcomplicate it, targeting groups under 1 million people, targeting 500,000 audience sets, targeting very much smaller audiences. Really try and figure out the main solution and try and figure out how could you have the biggest market fit to a lot of people. And then build up, then kind of start shooting that content, start reading the reviews and start building content around that. And then once you have a video that goes viral or a viral piece of content, take that piece of content and just literally spread it out across all your ad sets. Start, really taking that piece of content and popping variations of it into a multitude of different ad sets.
Got it. Just speaking about spying on your competitors with creatives, it's great when your competitor does all the work. And now, like you said, if you go to a business profile of a Facebook competitor or someone that you really respect and you want to see their creatives, it's all right there for you to see all the ad work that they've done at your fingertips. It's amazing intelligence.
Yeah, transparency. I think that Facebook really wants to build, after the whole, Cambridge Analytica, they really wanted to build a very transparent platform and build a platform that users really trust. And I think that's their way of really coming back to the table and saying, we want to build transparency.
The other thing that I used to use, so like for Skubana, we don't advertise, we grow organically. For my e-commerce business, nobody really wants to see a vacuum filter in their feed, right? It's not the most social product, which it's not so sexy, right? So my wife, she does a lot of Facebook ads. I built her Facebook funnel. I did it with also a chatbot using ManyChat. And one of the things I was using, I don't know if it still works, it's something called Fad Feed. It's a Chrome extension to help you fill your feed with only Facebook ads to see who's targeting you. And it could give you some really good ideas based on your likes of who's targeting you and what those creatives look like when you're spying on competitors and you want to get some ideas of ways you can do other things.
Yeah, you could also see under your preferences, like if you wanted to really see like which people, why you're being served ads. So if you look under preferences, you could actually see underneath, like on the specific ad, you click on it and you can see why people are targeting. Maybe you like a certain, like if I'm being targeted, I'm a big New York Yankees fan. If I'm being targeted with a New York Yankees, jersey, I'm going to be like, why am I being targeted? Oh, because I like the New York Yankees. So literally, you could do that. Go on.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, like how Facebook is just really, they want you to know why you're seeing a specific ad, and it's only going to get more and more transparent in a lot of ways.
Cool. So one of the things I mentioned that we are very focused on a lot of organic traffic, and we do a lot of backlinking around that. Part of that is like just people listening to us on webinars and being like, oh, wow, okay, Chad knows what he's talking about. I'm going to go check out his software because he's running his business with one employee. And Skubana automates the entire process. What are other ways that you're seeing those big brands grow right now outside of social?
Lots of ways. So we think of like different marketing channels as both we call intent-driven and discovery-driven. So I always talk about it's really important to figure out which discovery traffic sources will grow the business, because discovery drives intent. Obviously, someone sees your Facebook ad and then Google it, or they see your Facebook ad and they Amazon search it. Discovery is 9/10 of the game. So some of the other channels that that are a big priority for us is YouTube. YouTube is just getting better and better. Obviously, YouTube is seeing the success with with Facebook, so they're trying to turn their feed into a much more intelligent feed. Suggested videos, YouTube search. There's so much opportunity now on YouTube. Now people might not make a purchase directly from the YouTube ad, but YouTube is discovery, so it's driving it's driving people to actually make purchases off other channels. So they might see the YouTube ad and then attribute that back to a branded search conversion. So we're seeing a lot of success. I mean, I wouldn't say a ton of success, but I'd say we're seeing more success now than we were 6 months ago with YouTube. So we really prioritized, YouTube as a main hub. Traffic.
We had a question come in for you. Do you suggest working with an influencer via FameBit or Gen.video? If yes, how do you best pick out an influencer from their proposals? Thanks.
It's a good question. Picking out, number one, not only just picking out the influencer, but picking out the platform to really focus on. There's obviously influencers who have big followings on Instagram. There's influencers who have big followings on YouTube. The number one thing I look for when I pick out influencers, I want to find out how much average engagement they get on their posts. It's a little bit harder to figure out on YouTube because a lot of these influencers have channels and they have multiple episodes. But on Instagram, you can see like the average it's a metric of average engagement divided by the total amount of followers.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. What is that? What is the number that you should be looking at? What should be the engagement as a percentage of followers?
I mean, I love it to be around between 10 and 10%. I mean, some of that is really high right now just because obviously organic is dying on Instagram, but anywhere in that 10% range is really good. And above 10% is even better. But I'm looking at that. I'm also kind of just looking at who their audience is. Like what type of people do they reach? I'm reading the comments on YouTube. You can read the comments on their videos. I really want to understand, how people really engage with this specific influencer. Like, what purpose are they bringing to their life? Or is it just to kill time? Is it maybe the influencer has really good fashion advice? Maybe they post really cool content on sports. I really want to understand the community that they're building. I think that's because secondly, I want to understand how my product is integrated into that community. And
so a minimum 10% for your engagement on a post divided by the follower, 10%, right? That's the number you're looking for?
That's the goal. I mean, that's usually the goal, but obviously if it's lower, I still might suggest working with them. And one of the things we also do is when we structure influencer agreements is we ask for access or a deal of access to their Facebook page or their Instagram page to run ads from. So the piece of content that they create for us, we want to use that content in our ads.
That's great. I got another question for you because this is a hot topic. How do you find the micro influencers or influencers? And then do you just DM them, or talk to me about that process?
Yeah, so depending on the size, you might need to go through a talent agency. We've worked with talent agents like CEG Talent. Obviously, FameBit's more of a platform. There's lots of them. Revfluence, FameBit, CEG is more on the high end. Sometimes I'll literally message them directly. If you message them directly, what'll happen is if they're too big, and they'll just refer you to their kind of agent. But usually you could build out a list, and then you could hit them one by one, just schedule a phone call. It's still kind of the Wild Wild West. The way I think the intersection of influencer and paid media is happening is that no company can build the amount of content and production they need to run on Facebook profitably. So I feel like e-commerce brands are starting to see that the way they're going to scale is to build scalable forms of partnerships with content creators. And I think that if you're a brand that's trying to scale on Facebook, you really have to think about how do you build a scalable way to create content without it costing an arm and a leg.
Yeah, and I think that's why you don't want to always go up to the top dog influencers. There's so many micro influencers that have a good following where you just give them products and they'll work on your behalf just based on free products versus you paying them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that forging that long-term relationship with I look at an influencer less as an influencer and more as a content creator. So, I'm less bullish on getting ROI positive on just the influencer posting. I'm more bullish on using that influencer more as a spokesperson, as a content creator for my brand, knowing that I'm going to put paid media dollars behind that influencer.
Yeah, it would be hard for you to size up my Instagram because I don't do a lot of posts. I only do lives. And right now, Instagram doesn't actually expose my views on lives publicly.
It's funny.
Yeah. Okay, so Jesse Miller, we're going to wrap up here, Steve, but we got Jesse Miller. I've noticed with a ton of discrepancies within Facebook when reviewing purchases, have your agencies noticed the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think 100%. I mean, I think that because Facebook is not a last click, it's not a last click tracker, that you're going to see that Facebook attributes conversions the way Facebook wants to attribute conversions. It's up to their discretion. So if this user saw an ad and made a purchase, say 30 days later, well, Facebook's still going to count it as a conversion, whereas Google is more last click. So I think everyone should really start thinking about building their own attribution model to their business, of really the way they measure conversion activity for their brand. So I feel like that's something that each brand really needs to focus on, based on how much they're spending on Facebook, based on how many users are coming from Facebook. They really have to be thoughtful about how you attribute conversions back. Maybe use a different conversion window for your remarketing campaigns. Maybe you do 1-day view, 7-day click for remarketing, a shorter window. We've seen that before.
Got it. One of the things I wanted to leave the audience with was, and I think I mentioned this to you, we are having an Accelerate event in New York City. It's an event on October 3rd. And we're just about to actually, we haven't even announced it yet. So if you email me with the discount code EARLYBIRD, before we even announce it, you'll be able to get a discount to our event. Email me at chad@skubana.com. I don't know if there's a way that people can connect you, Steve. How should people find you, and tell us a little bit about, where they can find you and get more information on what you're up to.
Where could you find me? That's funny. If you want to reach out to me, you just have any questions beyond just like running Mute 6, like I'm a big believer that if you could bring value to, if you could bring value on intelligence, you could. That's really big to me. So if anyone has any question, just either reach out to me at steve@mute6.com. Also, I run a podcast called the Spend 10K a Day podcast, which dives deep into everything Facebook ad related and paid media related. So you can check me out on iTunes at Spend 10K a Day.
Great podcast, by the way.
Oh, thank you. And if you ever want to reach me with a question, I'm always happy to answer it to the best of my ability. And that's steve@mute6.com.
Cool. Awesome. Steve, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us today and making this happen.
Thank you so much for having me, Chad.
All right. Talk to you later.